Jai Hind students, myself Shiva Tyagi, and today I'll be discussing a very important topic in cloud computing from Unit 4. Well, in my previous lecture, I told you about what do we understand by the term identity and why actually there is a need for the management of this identity. So, what are the different type of challenges, like issues we have faced, and what is the type of solution that I'm going to discuss in this slide. What the different type of solution is that is basically required, and what is this management solution that we are going to see. Now, the first thing is that it is something which is going to improve the productivity of the user. Right? Productivity of the user is basically increased. It is something which is going to reduce the high support cost. In my previous lecture, I told you that this is something based on which, the issues that we generally use to encounter is the cost. Cost again rises, right? Delay time basically increases. So these are the major issues that we generally use to encounter. Remembering different type of IDs is an issue. Remembering different type of password is an issue. So some sort of mechanism need to be there with the help of which this can actually be addressed. So it is something based on which it is going to reduce the high support cost as well. Improved compromised security. See, we don't want to compromise with the security of the data that actually we are going to deal with. And I already told you in my previous lecture also regarding the authorization of the data, authentication of an individual, and again CIA model, right? So this is something which is very, very important, because as an individual, we don't want to compromise with the security. So based on the solution, it is something which is going to improve the security that we have compromised. Find compliance deficiency. Any sort of deficiency that we have encountered, we'll be able to find it and we'll be able to find the proper solution of it. Decrease the corporate dissatisfaction also. Now, what is the benefit of IAM? It is something which is going to save your money as well, right? Which is a very important factor. Improve the operational efficiency as well. As I told you, that it is something which is going to reduce the time to deliver application and services. Say, for example, you have asked for a particular type of services, and let's say you have to wait for too long to get the services, those services provided to you. So that type of delay, none of the end user or the client actually does not want, right? So it is something based on which we can say that it is something which is going to reduce the time based on which the application delivery, the services delivery can actually be done. Again, security, it is something which is going to increase or enhance the security, which is I should say the most important factor. It is going to enhance the regulatory compliance, and again more power to the audit. So these are the different type of benefits of an IAM. Now let's define different type of terms, IAM terms. First is the authentication. It verifies that a person is who they claim to be, right? If we generally use to say that this person is authentic, what do we mean by that? In very simple language, I can say that if a person is claiming that I'm so, then based on that authentication, we are sure that this person is so, right? So verifies that a person is what an individual person is claiming, that person is so. So based on an authentication, whatever type of privilege, whatever type of accessment of the data that you need to give to an individual, again can actually be given in the proper way. Authentication is must. This is where multi-factor authentication again comes into the play, like the different mechanism based on which the authentication can actually be done, different ways, different the more than one factor you are actually going to use, so that you'll be able to identify and you'll be able to authenticate an individual too. Identification and authentication are related, but again not the same. See, if you are properly identified, again based on that identification, the authentication can be done. And if you are authentic, then again you can authorized to use the data or the information. So identification plays an important role. Once you are identified, that means we'll be actually going to authenticate, we'll be able to check, so that we can actually make sure that whatever the person is claiming, that person is so, and based on that, the authorization need to be given to an individual. So next comes the authorization, deciding what resource can be accessed which is used by the user. This is again important. If you are authorized, that means based on what type of resources need to be accessed, what type of resources need to be used by an individual user. If one is not authorized, then again one is not eligible to use that particular type of resource. If you are authorized or if one is authorized, then one should be able to access that particular type of resource, or user should be able to use that particular type of resource. Right? So it's important. Now if you talk about accounting, it charges you for what you do. You are only paying for what you are actually using. The type of services, whatever services you are actually using, you are actually going to pay for the services that you are using. You are not paying for the services for actually which you are not using. So it is again accounting in nature. So IAM is basically a foundation. Identity management, account provisioning and deprovisioning, and again a proper type of synchronization. Now in terms of your administration, again the management of the user is a very important role that is basically done. Like if there are different type of users, the management of different users need to be properly need to be there. Again, as in my previous slide, I told you that management of password again is not easy. It is a tedious type of job, tedious task. So proper management of the password need to be done. Proper workflow need to be defined, like the login IDs, the passwords, the credentials, where it is going, the fulfillment of the credentials, then again going back to the concern, checking those. So proper workflow need to be designed, proper delegation, and lastly the reporting and the audit. If we talk in terms of access management, it is authentication and authorization of the user. Then if we talk about the solutions, the identity problem is not resolved with only one solution or product. Usually when it is implemented, the enterprise might need to use the combination of them. So it's very simple to understand that when we talk about this this issue, this is basically the issue for which a single solution will actually not work. Usually if you are talking about the implementation, it need to be implemented, and this problem is basically resolved by the combination of different type of solutions which is basically required. Now, what are those different type of solutions? They include, first is the directory type of services to manage the account attributes, and again the organization structure. So that means the structure of the organization need to be properly managed. If the structure of the organization is not properly managed, then there can be an issue. Then again, in terms of access management, single sign-on to manage the authentication and authorization for different type of users. Identify life cycle management to manage account provisioning and deprovisioning. A proper management of the life cycle, the entire life cycle need to be there, from beginning till end. Then again, role management to manage role-based access control, right? Access control mechanism need to be there, based on which the set of privileges again need to be given, and we can actually be make sure that who is authorized to access what. So some sort of control need to be there. Access control mechanism need to be there based on an individual type of role. Let's say in a particular type of organization, different roles are basically defined. So we cannot say that all persons are equally authorized to use all your data. This is something which is simply going to work based on the roles. These roles need to be properly defined, and based on these roles whichsoever is defined, a proper set of accessment need to be given. Now if we talk about the solutions, right, applications, we can see in terms of management, in terms of the life cycle management, we can see that there are users, there are credentials of an individual user, entitle management, auditing, reporting, and different set of provisioning need to be done. So this is something which is going to identify the life cycle in the proper way. If we talk about it in terms of access of the management, accessing will actually be dealing with the authentication authorization factor, right, based on which the management of access need to be done, that who is eligible to access what, based on an individual type of role. If I am at the topmost position, I should be able to access whatever is there in my the particular domain. If there is some at the lower end, then again based on the type of role whatsoever is designed, the proper accessment need to be given. So it is something which is going to vary depending on the type of identity which is provided, and based on that identity what is the type of authentication an individual is having, based on which that individual will be authorized to access the data. Then again, in terms of directory services, the user attributes, and again there are group credentials as well. Role management, as I told you earlier too, this is something which is very important. So a proper management of the role need to be properly defined. Manage different type of roles, different type of relegations, the entitlement, governance, risk, compliance, and all the management of different roles. Now, what are different type of roles? Password management. Remember, so many darn type of password is an issue, right? Again, there are orphan type of accounts as well. From the compliance standpoint, orphan accounts are major concern, since orphan accounts mean that ex-employees and former contractors or suppliers still have legitimate credentials and access to internal system, who are presently no more the part of the current organization actually, right? So they still have the legitimate credential and access to the internal type of system. This is something which is going to create a type of issue, right? So they are the type of accounts you can see, right, which have major concerns, because the employees which are no more the part of the organization, that means the ex-employees, the former persons, the former contractors, the former suppliers, they still have legitimate credentials and they'll be able to access your internal system as well, right? So what are the different challenges? Dealing with multiple identities is a biggest type of challenge. Dealing with again those type of accounts who are currently no more the part of that organization, and again they have the they are accessing the current account and all. Managing a lots of manual tasks. Business process is not the basic problem, where actually the basic problem comes into the scenario. The basic problem comes into the scenario because this process is not well defined. See, when we are talking about any particular type of process, if you are talking about any particular type of standard, it need to be well defined and in advance, right? So there is currently no business processes are not properly well defined, and that is why this type of issue comes into the scenario, right? Then again, expectations to make this data synchronization engine again for the application data, getting all stakeholders to have the common view of area which is likely to come together and again discuss the different type of issues. Say if we are having a common sort of problem, let's make some type of scenario so that they can come together and they can discuss different type of issues, so that we can actually come to some solution which is a better solution when we are having something in the form of group. Lots many ideas, lots many minds are actually working in the current scenario, so we can actually expect that we'll be getting something in proper way. Lack of leadership and again support from sponsors. That is again a biggest problem, that there is a lack of leadership and support from different type of sponsors as well. Deploying too many IDM technologies in the short period of time and lack of consistent architecture vision. So this is again something which is again changing. There is no consistent architecture vision. So lack of consistent architecture vision is again a challenge. Now, implement IAM, start slow, define your single source of truth. That is what is SSOT. Unfortunately, there may be more than one if that makes sense, right? So it is important that you need to define your single source of truth. Implement the big wins, user provisioning and again the Active Directory and again resetting of the password. But how this is going to work? Work with your team, IT and management to determine the true source of user information. See, when we have to collect the information, when we have to verify, when we have to identify the information which is provided by the user, whether it is true or it is false, like the information. See, when an individual is providing you some sort of information, that do we have any mechanism or the way with the help of which we can make sure that the information whatsoever is provided is 100% true? Like there is no falsity in the data whatsoever is provided. So what you can do, you can actually work with your team, right? Your IT people, the management, so that you'll be able to determine the true source of user information that you are getting. user provisioning to add, it's already happening. And again, there are different solutions available. So what are basically the results? User provisioning can be automated. Password resets can be delegated to the particular help desk. And again, the big one is you can now audit both the user provisioning and the password resets, which is again very important. You can audit both the provisioning of the user provisioning, and again the password resets. Authorization, this is again hard one. Applications define their authorizations rule differently. This is something which is going to vary, right? Different applications, they have, like it's not so that all the application is going to work on the same type of authorization rule. It is something which is going to vary depending on the particular type of applications that actually we are going to deal with. So they define their authorizations rule in a different way. Try to consolidate to the particular type of authorization landscape that we are going to use. Tackle this one application at a particular instance of time. Now, the important thing is that the power yours, you can now audit or you can now review that who has what account. Why do they have those account? If I'm having any particular type of account, then who is having that particular account and why do we have those type of accounts? Why there is a necessity for those type of accounts? And who is the one who has approved that particular type of account? So it's not like that it is a single person is having some sort of account. There should be some other type of approvals that you need to get. And who is the one who is the authenticate to approve that particular type of account? Are there any orphaned account? If yes, then try to find out. Who has access to what? That is again something which lead to again your authorization of the data, authentication of the data. If I am identified, I can say that I'll be authorized, and based on which I can say that I'm authorized to use a particular data. So it is something which is again going to work based on the type of access control mechanism, based on the roles, role-based access control, RBAC. Right? Based on the role an individual is having in the the organization in which we are actually dealing with, the roles need to be properly defined, and based on those roles, the access control mechanism need to be, the access need to be given. For how long they have that access, that for how much period of time that an individual had access to an individual type of account. Now, thank you so much, students, for this particular video. Thank you so much. Thank you.